Good morning, PD. You're listening to Live and Local Mornings for Florence and the PD on Live 95.
Welcome back to Good Morning PD Live 95 on a Wednesday morning. Special thanks to our sponsor, McCall Farms. We have with us on the line political strategist Debbie Georgatos. I hope I said that right or close enough. Debbie, good morning.
Good morning. It's Georgatos. It's a tough Greek name.
It is a tough Greek name for a Southerner from homegrown South Carolina. I apologize for butchering the name.
No problem.
We had a state dinner last night at the White House. French President Macron joined President Trump. It was a fairly intimate, private setting from what I saw last night. But a lot of the interest has been, Debbie, something that we're going to talk about this morning, the Iran nuclear deal. The president has delayed the decision to recertify the 2015 deal. And for those, the Cliff Note version is it lifts economic sanctions on Iran in exchange for them winding down their nuclear program. I think the interesting dynamic that has been added is Iranian President Rouhani has basically called on the president under threat or face severe consequences if he does not renew that deal. Do we have any idea of the state of affairs in relation to the American President Trump and French President Macron as I think Macron's trying to encourage, the president to be supportive of the 2015 deal?
He is. That was a great summary. President Macron, before he departed to come to America for this meeting, said to the press that he was going to be urging President Trump to keep America wrapped up in the Iranian deal. After the talks at the White House yesterday, and there was great imagery, by the way, of the two leaders talking and seeming to really develop a bond and be able to connect well. But after that, they both Macron came out and said, essentially, we do need some changes to this deal. He's talking about the need to address the failure. The deal originally does not have ICBMs covered, so what Iran would use to fire off their nuclear weapons if they were to develop them were not prohibited or limited in any way in the original deal. But the big sticking point for many people at the time of the deal and still today is the inspection provisions in the Iranian deal allow the country of Iran to exclude military installations from the IAEA inspectors, which is, it's like the analogy I've been saying this morning is it's like if the police came with a search warrant to your house and you said, you can search everything except for this one room over here. You're not allowed to go in there. I mean, the inspection provisions are the biggest tripping point in the deal, and I think that's part of what President Trump and others have been pointing out since it was signed, and I think that's part of the reason there has to be a push to change this deal, at least on that, and other provisions too, but that's the most problematic.
Debbie, you're a political strategist. I am a former politician. We tend to complicate things in an unimaginable way, and we can't even understand things to a certain point. But a lot of the conversations I have with business people and people of influence in our country is, can we trust the Iranians? Is it as simple as that? And if not that simple, how important is that ingredient to the deal? When we talk about inspections, we talk about disclosures, we talk about sanctions, but at the end of the day, how important is the trust factor when we're dealing with a country like Iran?
The trust factor is the biggest problem there is in dealing with a country like Iran. Iran has, since the time the Shah was removed, it has been a terror exporting country. It is widely viewed by pretty much every expert as the single largest terror exporting country in the world. Under this deal, billions, as in B as in boy, billions of dollars sent back by America to Iran that money has been traced to having been sent to Hezbollah, other terror creating and spreading organizations around the world. So it's a very dangerous country, and they have lied in the past on other deals. So the idea that, at this time, even though Iran is arguing that they are formally, in a kind of pristine way, complying with the Iranian deal, they are viewed by many to be not complying with the deal, that they are exceeding limits on the uranium enrichment, that they, under the heavy water deal portion of the deal, they have made impermissible efforts to procure dual-use nuclear and missile technology. They're obstructing the inspection efforts, even the ones that are permitted. So They're not complying, and they're not trustworthy. And that is the reason that the inspection provisions matter so much.
Debbie, President Bush ran for president saying, I don't want to be president of the world. I want to be president of the United States. You and I agree that the United States still has a prominent role to play in global negotiations. What are the consequences if the U.S. backs out of this particular deal?
Well, the deal was struck actually by the 5 member countries of the UN, the Security Council, plus Germany. So those 6 countries and Iran are really the parties to the deal, and then the United Nations accepted that deal. So if America will not certify their continued, commitment to the deal, that will mean the next step within America is we will move, I'm assuming, toward sanctions, bigger sanctions, increased sanctions against Iran, and try to isolate them and isolate the country of Iran, make it harder and harder for them to continue to conduct their terrorist offensive throughout the Middle East. I think that's the first step, and I think the sanctions will be severe. They have to be. In fact, sanctions are what brought Iran to the table to start with. The sanctions that the world signed on to were harsh enough that they came to the table. The other complicating factor for the government in Iran is there is widespread within their population protests against the Iranian government. I mean, they get repressed by the media, but in January and February of this year, it wasn't just in the big cities throughout the country. So Iran has a very unsettled population. The government doesn't have the support of the people. They've got that to factor in too. But I think the answer to, sorry, there's a long ramble to get to the point. I think that Iran is going to have to respond and open the deal negotiations again, even though they're saying they won't, because they don't really have any place else to go.
Last question, and I'll be very brief. Once again, thank you for your time. Did we make a bad deal, and do you care to predict whether we'll re-up or renegotiate the deal with Iran?
I think the deal in 2015 was a very bad deal for many reasons. We mentioned inspections. You can't inspect the military installations, just all sorts of detailed provisions. But I think that there should be an attempt to renegotiate with them. I think it's got to be a firmer insistence on not developing nuclear weapons. They're trying to cut down Iran's exporting of terror around the world, especially in the Middle East, and I think America will try to do that. I think it's not in our interest to just abandon the effort to get to a deal, but this deal was so bad. And actually, the European Union put out a statement a couple of days ago to that effect that we need to be doing more, and they're open to sanctioning Iran more. So I think the world pressure will be on Iran, and I think America will try to get to a better deal.
Debbie, thank you for your time. You've been very helpful and informative. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for having me.